Alright, one more day in the first WBC qualifier. It's been great so far, full of enthusiasm and some surprising results. The last day should be fun to watch, and so will the second qualifier, which starts this weekend. I was going to save this for after the qualifier, but everything I've got to say already applies now. Besides, with the day off before the final game, I feel like I should say something. So here it is, 5 things we've learned from the WBC qualifiers so far. First, South Africa had the right strategy, but they just didn't have the talent. Game 1 versus Nicaragua, they were close to pulling off an upset. They started their best pitcher, Dylan Unsworth. He went 4 1/3, no runs, no walks, and only 2 hits on 45 pitches. Then they brought out their second best pitcher, Justin Erasmus, in relief. He lasted 3 2/3, allowed 1 run on 3 hits and no walks. Left the game after the 8th, but the game tied 1-1. Using their 2 best starting pitchers back-to-back in the first game is the only thing that could have possibly worked for South Africa. After those 2, they didn't have any other reliable starting pitchers, and no one really good in the bullpen. Without any real depth, they had to rely on Unsworth and Erasmus to keep them in the game, which they did. They also had to pull both of them before they got to 50 pitches, so that they could save them to pitch in Tuesday's final game on 3 days rest. If there was no 2 versus 3 rematch, they might have gone all in on that first game. Had Unsworth go 6 innings, Erasmus go 5, try to eke out another run for the win, then get in on a 3-way tie, because they were not going to win without Unsworth and Erasmus. But since they needed to win twice, they had to take out the 2 pitchers before their pitch count got to 50. If they kept them in to try to win versus Nicaragua, it would have been nothing more than a statement win. They didn't want a statement win, they wanted to qualify. And they gave themselves their best chance possible with this strategy, but it just didn't work. Number 2, Taiwan didn't come prepared. You can say this is a young team, not their best players, not like the Premier 12 team, but it's no excuse. There are no circumstances where a team full of really good CPBL players and some promising minor leaguers should come within 1 run of suffering the mercy rule in Taiwan, then getting blanked 6-0 by Nicaragua. It shouldn't happen. They've still got one last chance to turn it around in the final game. They win, they qualify, and there's no difference between first and second place here. So if they win, people will look back and say the qualifier was a success for them. But anyone who's seen them play the last few days knows better. If they find themselves in this situation again in the future, they'll probably go with a stronger lineup, and that would likely give them better results. But it's not a case of simply having the wrong players. This group should not be 1-2, should not have surrendered 19 runs in 3 games. Poorly prepared, poorly managed. 3. No matter the format, don't count out a team after an early loss, even if they lose big. History seems to be repeating itself here. If you remember way back to the fall of 2022, Spain annihilated the Czech Republic, then lost in the 10th inning to Great Britain, followed by a loss in a rematch with the Czech team. So the first game between the Spanish and the Czechs didn't really mean anything, just a chance for the Czechs to shake off the cobwebs and get a feel for the competition. It was their first game after all. It's not how you start, but how you finish. This time, different format, but the same rules apply. And it's got to be frightening for the Spanish how they're following the exact same path toward WBC qualifier disappointment. It's not over yet, they can still avoid it, but the similarities are there. 4. Nicaragua was the best team, without a doubt. Many doubted them after their first game with South Africa. What they don't understand is that Nicaragua was facing a different South Africa than what Taiwan and Spain had to go up against. South Africa had 2 good starting pitchers, as I've already said, and pretty much nothing after that. They used those 2 starting pitchers back-to-back, totaled 8 innings, and held Nicaragua to a single run. Kept them in the game, but it wasn't enough. Taiwan or Spain facing those 2 starting pitchers for 8 innings would have struggled in the exact same way. Nicaragua also struggled to produce offensively versus Spain, but 2 runs are all they needed. A lot of times the best team wins 2-1, or 1-0. Because pitching wins games, Nicaraguan pitchers allowed just 2 runs over 3 games, which is just amazing. Didn't score a lot, but didn't need to. 5. This time of year is better for attracting fans, but not for player participation. Interest in this year's qualifier greatly surpassed the last one from 3 years ago. No surprise that attendance was higher given that Taiwan is playing in Taiwan. This will be the highest attendance for any WBC qualifier ever. But also the number of viewers on all the platforms was much higher than ever before. There was more interest from fans in Taiwan than there was the last time Taiwan was in the qualifier, back in 2013. More interest from fans in Nicaragua than there was a few years ago. And more people watching from countries around the world that are not even involved in the qualifiers. It's the same reason the main tournament of the WBC is played in March, despite so many calls to have it moved to November. This is the time of year when people really want to watch baseball. For those who don't watch winter leagues, it's the first baseball they've seen in a few months. Opening day is approaching, but not quite here yet. No other major championship going on at this time. Last time qualifiers were in September and early October, perhaps the worst time to have this, right as the postseason is about to get started in North America, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. It's too much to ask for people to turn their attention away from the postseason race and the start of the postseason. February is a much better time, no other baseball to compete with. Anyone who wants to watch baseball in September and October has plenty of options. Anyone who wants to watch in February or March has the WBC qualifiers. But what's good for the fans isn't so good for the players. Some really good players withdrew from the WBC qualifiers to concentrate on earning a roster spot for the upcoming season. Some players were on their country's WBC qualifier roster, then removed when they were unexpectedly given a spring training invite. And unlike the big tournament, you really can't blame these guys for passing on this event in favor of spring training. They're not millionaires with multi-year contracts. Many of them have never reached the highest level, and this could be their last chance. They're making less money than a lot of you out there. And when it comes to player participation, September is the best time. Minor league seasons are just ending. Players are ready to go. They've been playing all summer and they're available to play. They know they've got the off season to rest when it's all over. So which would they rather have, more people watching the qualifiers or better players participating? Of course, more people watching. That's why I think February and March WBC qualifiers are here to stay. Won't always have the best players for every country, but that's just how it'll be. So those are 5 things we've learned from the WBC qualifiers so far. Then there are some questions that have yet to be answered, like is it a good strategy to use your best starting pitcher on the first and last days, or is it better to save one good arm all the way till the final day? And will the second WBC qualifier be a success too? Surely not as successful, but can it manage good attendance with all 4 countries playing on a neutral field? And it's 4 countries where baseball is not the biggest thing, unlike Taiwan and Nicaragua. Will there still be people from all over the world watching? We'll have to find out. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya!